The Lotus Sutra deals with unrealistically huge numbers. I was reading this chapter called The Parable of the Fantastic Castle City to come up with these extraordinary numbers. The Buddha is speaking about this Tathagata who will be the main character of this today's story. This Tathagata, the Buddha says, had lived innumerable, unlimited, inconceivable, and countless eons ago. It sounds like this Tathagata was present even before the first human appeared on this planet. The Buddha explains how long ago this Tathagata passed into extinction, saying, "Suppose someone took all of the earth in a 3,000 great thousand-fold world and ground it into ink powder, and then passed through 1,000 lands to the east, dropping one speck as large as a speck of dust, and again passing through another 1,000 lands, dropping just one speck." The Buddha asked the disciple, "Is it possible to count the number of all the lands to visit when the ink has been exhausted?" I wonder why the Lotus Sutra often describes these incalculable numbers to mention the years a Buddha or Tathagata has been extinct or lived. The same thing is true with the number of Buddha or highly trained disciples. There has never been that huge number of human population, even if it be cumulated. It all makes me wonder, are they even human origin? Are these happening on this planet or Earth? Or is this about parallel worlds or otherwise outer space beings? In chapter 23, before the Buddha mentions Medicine King Bodhisattva, he speaks about this Tathagata called Pure and Bright Excellence of Sun and Moon Tathagata. This Tathagata had lived so many years ago, as incalculable as the sands of the Ganges. He had had 8 billion bodhisattvas and countless number of disciples, as many as the sands of the 72 Ganges. I wonder why 72? How many specks of sands are there? And the Buddha says the lifetime of this Tathagata was 42,000 eons, and the bodhisattvas and disciples had had the same lengths of lifetime. What kind of beings are they? How did those huge number of beings exist? Where were they? In my younger days, I used to imagine this world I was living in was not the only place spiritual beings or spirituality existed. There should be countless worlds up and running. I imagine there are creatures or beings who are on the lower spiritual levels, as well as on the higher or on the utmost level. This may sound too much beyond our reality, but there might be reptilian-like beings, Andromedan-like beings, as well as any form of spiritual beings imaginable. We may not be able to find them with our own eyes, as they might exist in different dimensions or phases. In my high school days, a couple of female students in the same class used to say they had seen me somewhere in the downtown, walking with someone. I'd never been around there at that time, but they insisted it was me. I didn't take it seriously, but that talk or discussion lasted for about 3 years. Interestingly, there was another person who mentioned the same thing a few years ago. He works for the same company as mine. He was saying I was driving a white car and someone was in the passenger seat. I've never owned or driven a white vehicle in my lifetime. He might have taken someone else as me. But it's interesting because I was wearing colorful glasses at that period, which I'd never seen on anyone else in the town or around here. Even if what they said was right, I'm not surprised considering that there might be different worlds up and running. Sometimes I feel I might have stepped aside to a different parallel world in the past. It's just my feeling, so there is no way I can prove it. But when I read the Lotus Sutra, this stepping aside phenomenon can happen. Possibly. There are as many patterns of worlds existing as the sands of the Ganges. Actually, this idea helped me not to lose hope in my bad times of life, when I hadn't had any work or part-time job due to my mental breakdown, which lasted for about 10 years. I have only lived by myself in a small apartment. My parents paid for the rent during those 10 years or a little more. The only people I spoke with were my parents, a few close relatives, or my doctor. I had had no friends to talk with. This blank period had lasted between my mid-20s and mid-30s. As I recovered from my mental situation, I started working as a security guard at buildings or construction sites. Then I started to work in the office. Somehow I had the opportunity to learn and do the work I'm doing today. There were miraculous or incredible events or happenings which makes me feel I sometimes stepped aside to a different world. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I saw myself in my 30s and in my late 60s. The thing the 30-some-year-old had said to me was confirmed by this me about 30 years later. I had seen more visions that I was to see later with my own eyes. Or I am seeing myself at the age 7 or so recently. This 7-year-old me is always walking around outside and at the same spot. I wonder those people be the ones in parallel worlds also. I not only communicate with my late grandparents, I feel I sometimes communicate with my parents, who are both alive. I know they are not the ones living on this phase of Earth, but I also feel these parents are the same as my parents I speak over the internet. Reading the Lotus Sutra makes me think these phenomena are not that crazy, though they sound crazy in an everyday sense. What I like to be doing now is to confirm what I see and perceive through my own experiences.